Erinn, welcome.
Thank you so much.
I'm so glad you're here.
Oh my gosh, been looking forward to this for so long, so I'm happy to be here too.
I have too. And I mean, I feel like we've had like 10 minutes to get to know each other when we were, Laura Hotvet from our office coordinated an opportunity for us to speak to Women Venture.
Yeah.
And we got to St. Paul a little early. Clearly, I wasn't the one coordinating the timeline because I'm never early. But it gave us an opportunity to see your space and meet you. Yeah. And I was just thrilled. I feel like we're friends.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I love that energy that you bring and your whole team brings. And I've definitely, since opening the Coven and having so many different types of folks who come through the doors and just watching folks' energy change when they're in the space or get engaged when they get into this space, it's been just like such a delight. So yeah, I can definitely sense when folks are like on fire a little bit in a good way. And so it was such a delight to connect with you that day. And yeah, really happy that you invited me out for today.
And is your St. Paul Coven, how do I say that correctly?
We say the Coven.
Coven.
Yes,
okay.
Like oven.
Okay, that helps me. Yeah. Sorry, because I'm just
you don't
insecure
have to apologize
about how
at
I'm
all.
supposed to say that.
No apologies necessary.
But was that your first location?
So our first location was actually in the North Loop of Minneapolis.
Okay.
So we opened our first location on March 8th, which is International Women's Day, in 2018.
Okay.
And we opened right on the corner of First and First, so really close to the Federal Reserve Building in the North Loop of Minneapolis. And that first location, really came about after multiple years of hard work and relationship across the four of us co-founders, but really in 2017, that year was when we started to write a business plan. And it was really started from this space of all four of us co-founders came from advertising. We were working in different elements of the advertising industry. We worked at different agencies. All of us were really senior leaders in our agencies. Like I was running the New York office for my particular agency, which was Space 150, which is a great digital agency, digitally focused agency that's still here, based in the Twin Cities, but has space across the nation. But yeah, the four of us were all in these kind of different areas of the business, but we were really continuing to connect with one another about creating more opportunities within the creative industries for women in particular, and very specifically Black women. We were really focused on how do we not just recruit, but retain Black talent, Black female talent, here in the Twin Cities, which is really a hotbed for a lot of incredible marketing agencies, PR agencies, advertising agencies. And so that was how the four of us got connected. During that time, we really started to have this sense of there was a world that we were anxious to create or to see come to fruition that we didn't feel was possible within just the bounds of the industry that we were currently inhabiting. And so we started to think about, gosh, when we're organizing these events together, whether it's a 400-person, conference on confidence, or it's one-on-one mentorship, or it's a, intimate conversation about what some of us women might be navigating within the workforce, there was such huge interest. It was like everything was immediately sold out. And so it was really telling us like, there's something here, these women want to connect across industry. And then we started to layer on like, they want to connect across age. They want to connect across generation. They want to connect across cultural backgrounds. They want to connect in all of these different ways. And so that was really kind of what started our thinking about a space like the Coven, which was really, how do you create a physical container for what we experience as the magic of when, women, non-binary and trans folks are together? Like, what does that feel like when you're in a physical space that really helps you feel celebrated, acknowledged, and honored? What might that look like? And so that was the start of it. And so we, our our very first location, we crowdfunded. None of us are independently wealthy yet. And so we couldn't just lease a space and get going, you know, so we used all of our expertise on the advertising side of things and started to host pop-ups and had focus groups and really started to, you know, do outreach to the community once we knew we had a really strong, viable business concept. We launched a crowdfunding campaign to help support the work that we were doing. We sold 150 founding memberships through that crowdfunding campaign. So by, you know, January of 2018, we had raised almost $400,000.
Wow.
Which gave us the runway we needed to, you know, not just open up our beautiful space, but to furnish it and to have, you know, a good year of runway as we started to build out the concept. So
wow.
that was the start of us, which was like, you know, by the date 6.5 years ago, but by like the lived experience, 1.5 million years ago was when we opened our first location.
I love that. Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
So how scary was it to leave
my Lord.
corporate America and like have this big job that, you know, running New York City? I mean, that's cool, right?
Yeah.
Like that's an identity thing. Like,
yeah.
How do you leave that?
Oh my gosh, Lisa, it's such a good question. Honestly, I don't think anyone's ever asked it from that perspective. I love that because I think, I mean, the identity piece was the big shift, right? And I think what all four of us were starting to experience around the same time was that we were recognizing that those corporate jobs were not our identity. And, you know, we were talking before we got on mic today about that sense, especially from women, of just working so hard. And I think particularly here in the Midwest, like kind of work ethic is valued above all other things.
Especially for, you know, I think the
Absolutely.
younger generation's kind of woken up a little bit, but yeah.
Absolutely. And so I think for the four of us, we were kind of simultaneously, and because of our relationship with each other, really starting to come to terms and starting to understand, like, regardless of how hard we worked, the other values that were really present in our life, in addition to work ethic, were not being served. And for me, I had a real kind of moment in 2016 where it was like, I can no longer ignore this vastness that is occurring between who I consider myself to be as a person, what my values are, where I want to be putting my time and effort, and what is taking up my time during the day. And it was less that they were not in sync with one another. It was more that one kind of ignored the other.
Interesting.
And I just kind of got to a point where it was like, you know, it's like I woke up one day and all of a sudden it was just literally so obvious to me.
Wow.
And it was like, oh, I can't do this anymore, right?
Yeah.
And so when I first left that position, it was before we even had the idea for the Coven. So it was like, I was already on my way out. I knew.
Really?
Yes, I just knew. I didn't know what it was, but I knew that something else was out there, and I just couldn't really live with that bifurcation in myself anymore of my values and my time. And and then, you know, I think what gave us that confidence
And who are your partners?
Oh, the most fabulous woman you could ever hope to meet in your life. So Alex West Steinman, who is our CEO and my co-founder and partner, she's incredible. She comes from a PR background. Alex, if you're in the Twin Cities, you have seen her beautiful face somewhere. She's been kind of like rightfully acknowledged at every level. She's so wonderful. She's a really strong Black woman who has really led with her identity in so many beautiful ways and as such like a connecting force. And she's just extraordinary. My other two co-founders, Liz Giel and Bethany Iverson, both just powerhouse women. They come from market research and strategy backgrounds. So like the four of us together are this like great combo, because Alex and I talk about ourselves as like the feelings corner. Like we're all like gut and intuition and vibe. And those two are like, Bethany and Liz are like all like data and, you know, insights. And
Love that.
I know, it's so great. So we really make a lovely pair, all four of us together.
Great.
And Liz and Bethany, both of them were just honored as one of the top like Inc. 100 women to know in business. Liz just got one of the CMOs of the year here in the Twin Cities. So yeah, just the most extraordinary people you could hope to be in community with.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. Which honestly made a lot of this less scary.
Yeah.
Because we were all kind of in it together from the beginning.
Yeah.
And even if we were all scared, at least we were all scared together.
Yeah.
So that's definitely helped kind of navigate a lot of the fear along the way.
So you gave yourself some space to kind of think about, just not getting on the hamster wheel and like what is next and listen to the universe. And then that happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's actually the way I talk about it a lot is when I left the advertising industry, it was like the universe opened up for me in a way that I don't think I had the time or space or attention or ability to see.
Sure.
And so, yeah, I'm a huge advocate when folks are like, oh, I'm thinking about starting a new thing or I'm like, yes, and give yourself some space if you can. If you're in a position where it's like you can take even a month and just give yourself some like emotional capacity and some time capacity back and give yourself a little bit of space. I'm a huge proponent for that. And it's kind of amazing how quickly it all happened once it started to happen.
Wow, that's that. Mm-hmm. Then you've got this, so you found a space. How did that come about, maybe?
Yeah.
Let's start there.
Yeah, absolutely. So the physical space, it was a lot of, Alex and I, that summer of 2017, both of us had left our other full-time positions. So she and I were lovingly touring every single place in the Twin Cities. And for us, we really wanted to, we were both picky and we weren't picky. It was kind of like, we just really want a lot of natural light and we want a space that's accessible. And so when we think about accessibility for our membership, it's certainly physical accessibility. So ensuring that, folks who might have different mobility needs can get there, but also thinking about accessibility from a socioeconomic standpoint. So part of our membership is a give back. So for every 5 memberships we sell, we give one back into the community as part of our community funded membership model.
Oh, I love that.
So to date, we've gifted over 400 memberships for annual memberships free of charge to any of our to members who qualify.
Wow.
And part of that was really great feedback in the in that phase when we were really starting to define who the Coven was and what the community might look like, was a really good pushback to say, you can have diversity in a number of different ways in terms of lived experience and age and industry. But if you don't have socioeconomic diversity, you're really not engaging all the levels of diverse thought and experience, which was such a great push for us. And so with this community funded give back model, we're able to ensure that socioeconomics is not a barrier for entry to become a Coven member. And but alongside that is accessibility to ensure folks who might rely on public transportation can very easily get to a space.
Sure.
And so those were kind of all of the things that we were looking at when we found our location. Our inevitable location, I think actually all of them, it's always so hilarious how this happens, is a friend of a friend knows of a space that isn't on the market but could be a good fit, kind of thing. And so we found this, beautiful brownstone building. It was 2 floors. It was the top 2 floors of the building, the 3rd and 4th floor. And it was really quaint, and it was on this very accessible block in Minneapolis. So, people could get there they could park, they could take the bus, they could get on the light rail. And so, we walked into the space and it was kind of an immediate feeling of we can see it here. Mm-hmm. And that first space, we learned so much.
I was just going to ask you,
oh my God,
please
never
tell
ending.
me the learnings. Yeah.
Well, we certainly, some unintentional and wonderful learnings. One was about ensuring that we have different types of workspaces. So not just the amenity of the workspace, but the vibe. So ensuring we have a space that feels very extroverted and a little outgoing and more kind of buzzy, and then a space where more kind of heads down, quiet, focused work can happen. And so we kind of unintentionally learned that by having this 2-floor concept.
Oh, sure.
But it's one that we've replicated in all of our spaces and that we guide our franchisees to replicate as well, because folks really do want and need to move through different workspaces throughout the day. And so that was a huge lesson.
It's so interesting that you say that, because I think merging old school, new school, and having, they need the different spaces throughout the day, I think is interesting, because I think when we're looking at traditional office design, you know, a lot of people are like, we're going to have this open floor plan. Right. And then others are like, we're going to, we want more traditional. We need more closed in cubes. So we can.
Right.
But to actually see people in a really free flowing workspace with people that get to make their own choices about where they work, right? Because it's not like they're working for a company that says you have to do it this way. Interesting. That's pretty good feedback for just really how humans really want to engage in working.
Yeah. And part of being a small business, and one that's certainly focused on community, is also just learning and listening to what the needs of our members are. Smart. And so obviously this has changed like 6 times over since the beginning of the pandemic as well, because all of us are working so differently, right? We talk about kind of prior to the panty, we all had like, our spaces were filled with like lots of soft furniture and and we still have those, but it was like, because people were like, I don't want to come to the Coven and go sit at a desk. I can sit at a desk in my office or at home. I'd rather like come to the Coven and sit in these like, beautiful couches and have space to, spread out. Well, then as folks were coming back into the space after the start of the pandemic, they're like, oh my God, give me a desk. I'm tired of sitting on my couch and working, right? So it's like just being very attuned to those things and listening. So that was like a huge unintentional lesson early on. Our first location, there was no private office or dedicated spaces. So we had a conference room, we had phone rooms, that sort of thing.
Sure.
But everything else was very open, and it was the number one request we heard from folks. So as we started to build out St. Paul, which you visited and is considered our headquarters, that was like, okay, we know we want to have private offices here. We want to have dedicated workstations. We want to have more conference rooms. We want to give more flexibility to our members, to be able to like flow in and out of spaces throughout the day. So that was definitely another huge lesson. But one of my favorite stories I love to share, and I think is a good encapsulation maybe of like what we have learned about physical space and how we continue to evolve, is in our first location in the North Loop, we built this beautiful mother's room. So the 4 of us co-founders, we are all, 3 of us have kids, we're all in, different partnerships. And 3 of us with kids, had this experience of pumping in, let's be honest, the weirdest of places, So like in my office, and when I was in advertising for a while, like we didn't have a mother space. So I was like pumping in an office with like full glass walls, just turned towards the window, like with my back to my door. But then also like pumping in IT closets and in bathrooms and going out to your car and like, all of these places that just have this kind of odd feeling of like you should be a little ashamed or hidden, or we just didn't like that feeling. So we built this beautiful mother's room. It had natural light in it. It had, this gorgeous chair and a fridge and a sink and like everything right there. And we were so proud of ourselves. And we opened the space and people loved it. And then one of our members came to us within maybe the first couple weeks open. And this member was like, I love this space. And can I just provide some feedback? I don't necessarily identify with motherhood. I identify with parenthood. And what if it was a parent room? And what if, because it's large enough, could it also be a prayer room for folks who have daily prayer meditation practices? And it was like, oh, yeah, absolutely. And it was such a great indication for us of, one, learning in public and being very open to the feedback that comes with that. Not being ashamed that this thing that was our personal experience and we felt really proud of, that like we didn't do it bad. It was just more like, oh yeah, we can do it better. We can do it better. Exactly. We can even broaden it a little bit more.
Right. We can do more. Yeah.
Exactly. And so since then, in all of our spaces, we have a parent and prayer room, and it acts for folks that do have that kind of daily prayer and meditation practice, folks who are pumping, folks who just want to be able to tuck away. It's just a space to be able to do that. And I think it's just, again, I think it's a nice encapsulation of like how we've tried to design our spaces to both like acknowledge our lived experiences and also do it in such a beautiful and inclusive way.
Love that.
Yeah.
And how many locations do you have today?
Well, so we have 2 headquarter locations, so one in Minneapolis and one in St. Paul, and then we are growing via franchising, or what we call our community ownership network. So last week or 2 weeks ago, we just announced a new space that'll be opening in Wisconsin. So as of this recording, we have 4 franchise locations across Minnesota and Wisconsin, and growing, and more that we'll be announcing soon before the end of the year. So
wow.
Yeah,
where
really
are the
exciting.
other 4 locations?
So we have one in St. Louis Park. We have one on East Lake Street in Minneapolis, so right down by the river, one in Eau Claire, and one opening in Marshfield, Wisconsin.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah.
How do you help your franchisees with the model? I mean, you've learned a lot along the way,
boy.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So and I think the franchise model can be a lot of different things.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And I think there's some there's some franchisors that do it better than others, that really care and support. Now, you've got such a caring, inclusive culture with your company.
Yeah.
How do you support those franchisees so that they can be successful? What are the tools they need
Absolutely.
to have?
Yeah.
It's probably a big question.
It is a big question, but it's such a fair one. I mean, when we started, to be totally honest, we, prior to the pandemic, imagined growth of the Coven across these kind of what we would call flyover cities or second tier cities, mostly not because we believe that, but mostly because there's just so much pent up demand throughout the Midwest, throughout the Rust Belt, for a lot of communities that a larger co-working concept would never come to, right?
Right.
And so prior to the pandemic, we imagined those as all owned spaces. Once the pandemic occurred, what we really saw was a lot of folks who owned a lot of spaces, that those spaces, it was really hard to survive, mostly because when you're not in the community that you're serving, especially with a concept like ours, like if you're not physically in that community, it's hard to navigate what the needs of that community are, what the relationships of that community are.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah, we really strive to, like, yes, we're a physical space, obviously, but it's also like the relationship with our members extends past that.
Interesting.
So, kind of between, frankly, feeling like I never wanted to have my name on another lease again during navigating the pandemic. But beyond that, it was truly like being here in the Twin Cities in the summer of 2020, when we were all navigating after the murder of George Floyd and what was happening in our city, and what just acutely what we were all feeling together. That really for us went, as we grow, it is so important for us to be, whomever owns that place needs to be of that community.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so that's when we really started to look into franchising and figure out what that might look like. And to your earlier point, it is ripe for a lot of improvements across the board. And, we really feel strongly that what we don't ever want to be is like a brand that plops down into a certain community and is like, here we are. It's, it's really about kind of how do you braid what the Coven has been able to provide in the resources that we have, who the community is, and then who that owner is. Like, how do you kind of braid all of those things together to create a concept that feels really appropriate and really rooted in the community that it's already in? So that's why we call it our community ownership model, is we wanted to really kind of wrap our arms around these individual owners and provide them the resources and the insights and the confidence and the relationships to go, you're not alone in this. We're here. These other community owners are here. Like, let's learn and build together. So that looks like everything from, here's 7 years of insights of like how to very specifically lay out your physical location to maximize your revenue opportunities, to what is the design and the, look and feel of the space, to supporting on the technology and the marketing side of things. And then also helping folks with their launch campaigns and connecting within the community and all of that. So we do have this, what feels like 1.5 million years of lessons learned, and really being able to kind of hand that off and provide that to these individual owners, and then support them like literally on a weekly basis with, as they're getting up and running, what are the questions they have, who should they be connecting with, all that kind of gnarly stuff. And so, yeah, so that's.
I love the image of the braid.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really smart. And thinking that, you know, the combination of them being able to put their own spin on it, the community spin, but also still keeping with what you intended the Coven to be.
Yeah.
It's got to be a little bit of a balancing act.
Oh my goodness, for sure. For sure. And we're, you know, frankly, like we're learning it and relearning it all the time. I mean, I often say, I feel like my biggest lesson in all of business ownership has been how loosely to hold on to your concept and what you imagine and what you think it's going to be. You know, when we first opened the space, or when we were first imagining the Coven, I mean, I was like, this is a women only space. Like it was, I felt very, very strongly about that. And as time went on, one, we just expanded to more marginalized genders because we were hearing about that. And then beyond that, it's like now all gender expressions are in our space. Everyone is welcome. We have seen our community only deepen and improve, frankly, by the presence of folks from all walks of life,
and
right?
all different perspectives.
And all different
perspectives.
perspectives.
And they're all important, as long as everybody has a seat at the table.
Exactly. And really recognizing then that within that, you know, our role is to continue to model what a healthy, vibrant, listening community, what that looks like, what that culture looks like, right? So that becomes our role.
Interesting, yeah.
So I think to your point, you know, so much of this is, it's just kind of holding on to it firmly but loosely, you know, and really helping our individual community owners feel that same sense, right? That it's like, okay, you think you're going to sell this particular type of membership right out of the gate, or you're going to get a ton, and then maybe all of a sudden this is growing in a really unique way. And it's like, okay, how do you still fuel this while, you know, creating new opportunities in this other area that is growing in maybe an unexpected way, and just helping them navigate that.
I think that what you say is so enlightening to hear it articulated, because I feel like, you know, having been, especially doing a lot of retail business over the years, you know, those concepts that say this is who we are and this is who we want to be, that don't ebb and flow and listen to the community, are those that can't sustain themselves. I mean, you can't just be the same thing you were 5 years ago.
That's right.
Especially the way we're being influenced by so many different areas from all over the world and ideas and what have you.
Yeah.
If you have to hold on to certain expectations and certain business model elements. Yeah,
absolutely.
But how can you really say that you listen to your consumer if you hold on too tight? So that's really something to think about, and a really good way to put it.
Yeah, and I think, you know, each brand is different. This is where our background of, you know, all of our experience in advertising certainly helped. But it's like, you know, some of the largest brands in the world listen to their consumers all the time and shift and ebb and flow. You look at the culture of a brand like Nike has shifted dramatically in, you know, over the course of its life cycle, and has engaged different communities in different ways while still kind of holding the center, right, of whom they are. And so I think for us, it's kind of determining what those non-negotiables are.
We were talking about non-negotiables when we started today, and I think that's interesting.
Totally. And so it's like, what are the non-negotiables for our, you know, the brand of the Coven, but more importantly, the culture and the experience of the Coven, and wherever it may exist, what are those non-negotiables? And then how does it fold in all of these other things to be relevant to the communities that they're in? Because a path for disaster is going, well, we know exactly what works in Minneapolis and St. Paul, so of course it's going to work in this other community. And the reality is, no, of course it won't. You know, there's differences. So yeah.
So geeking out on the commercial real estate piece.
Yeah, get at me.
How? What have you learned about like square footage? Like how big do you need to be? There's, you know, a lot of different co-working concepts out there.
For sure.
And you know, many claim to say you have to have a certain size to make it work. And, you know, what have you learned about that? Yeah,
no, it's a great question. So much of our learnings in the past, you know, handful of years have been around that. So for us, we're small business owners, right? And our franchisees are small business owners. So what we're not going to do is encourage a small business owner to open up a 30,000, 90,000, 120,000 square foot space. It's just that level of engagement with the community is really difficult to maintain in a space like that, right? Size like that. So what we have found is the sweet spot for us at the Coven has been, really like 6,500 to 9,500 square feet. So they are smaller spaces. But within that range, it allows folks to have, shared community space. It allows them to have, up to or more than 40% of their footprint dedicated to private offices or dedicated space. So from like a revenue perspective, they just know that they've got that reoccurring revenue every month. And then it also for those shared services. So your conference rooms, your phone rooms, those sorts of things. That has kind of been the sweet spot for us. And it is that kind of overlap of like, not just how well the space can perform, but how well it can be managed.
Okay. Sure.
And how the community can be engaged within that management.
Yeah.
So we're trying to find that balance of what we don't have and what doesn't work for our brand, but would certainly work for others is like folks who are like, I just need a desk. I don't want to talk to anybody. I just want to come in. I just want to have a desk and leave. Folks aren't attracted to the Coven for that reason, right?
Sure.
They're attracted because of the community elements. They're attracted because of the design of the space, that it is very community oriented in both, all of the kind of soft offerings as well as the physical space itself. So that has been kind of the right range for us. One thing that has been a big lesson has also been flexibility of space, right? So thinking about how do you also create your community space in a way that it can be used for events after hours, or it can be flipped for this particular type of thing. And just being able to, again, kind of create different revenue streams other than you walk in and it's 48 cubes and that's all they're ever going to be and they can't be anything else.
Yeah.
And so, kind of that combination of the size and then also the flexibility.
Okay. And so what do you find is your most common membership? Like how does the majority of your clients or customers, whatever you call them, how do they use the space? Yeah,
so we have a few different levels of membership. Our most popular is what we call our Grow level membership, which is essentially all access. So we're staffed 8 to 5 every day in all of our locations. Our Grow members get access across our network. So that's a huge bonus for folks as they go, I might be based in the Twin Cities, but I have business in Wisconsin or I have business in Iowa, and I'm able to utilize those spaces as I navigate, or even here in the Twin Cities. We're the only co-working concept that has a space on both sides of the river.
That's really interesting.
It's funny because we'll have folks who are like based in Minneapolis and then they'll use our St. Paul space for like their offsite. It's kind of hilarious. But so those members, we have a handful of folks outside of obviously private offices who like come in and work from the space every single day. But most of our members are dropping in and out of the space 2 to 3 times a week. It might be for 4 hours, it might be for 2 hours, but they're generally coming in for a period of time to get some work done, to meet with somebody, to get out of their house, to kind of step into the path of inspiration a little bit, engage with the community or engage with other members while they're there, and then they pop out. So it's a very it's a pretty transient space from that perspective. The way our spaces are run is very, very hospitality forward, intentionally so. So the hope is that, again, when folks walk in, it's not just like Lisa, do you know where you're sitting? It's more like, Lisa, do you know? Okay. I saw that you're already on 14. Is there anything else that you need today? How did that meeting go last week? Is there anything we can help prep for you? That sort of thing. Or Lisa, I met a member last week who I'd love to connect you with. They're really interested in the podcasting space. And I know you have some, background in that. Do you feel open to me connecting with you? That sort of thing. It's like that level of connection. Yeah.
That's really special.
Yeah. We think so. But I think it's what makes it sticky, right? Yeah. Because when the pandemic started, we only lost about 10 members out of, at the time, we had over 500.
Wow.
And these were members who obviously were not able to physically access the space for a number of months. And in fact, we doubled our membership during the first 2 years of the pandemic. And what that was telling us is that people are craving connection, and sometimes they're able to engage in that connection physically in our spaces, but we created a whole digital platform during that time. But really what folks are craving is kind of regardless of where they may be in their life personally and professionally, is they're craving connection and what that looks like. And so for us, that's what makes it sticky. We have a member for life, not just when they come in and they utilize the space, even if they came in every single day. We have a member for life when they've come in and we've helped them make a meaningful connection that has benefited them personally and professionally. And that, again, that they feel very seen and acknowledged when they're in our space. So we really lead with that and continue to learn from our community about what they need and what that might look like.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, really cool.
Yeah,
I mean, that
thank
goes
you.
so far beyond what it sounds like to have a co-working space.
Sure. Sure. And that's, I think for me as like the person who leads the physical design of the spaces, like I often think about, I think one of the most exciting moments or opportunities in life is like helping create an environment where the best work can happen. And there's so many inputs into what environment means. You know, it is certainly physical design.
Which is your expertise.
Right. You know, and so thinking about what folks might need within that to really feel like they can get their best work done or feel like the best version of themselves in that. And then it's also the people that they're around. And then it's the culture that they're participating in, the rituals that they're participating in that space. Like all of those things are what creates an environment. And so those are the things that, again, we're kind of constantly attuned to, thinking about how to tweak, how to perfect, how to improve, how to shift, you know, how to learn from in the space. And those elements together are really what create that environment.
Wow. Well, I have probably 1,000 more questions, and I think, you know, we could just, but because I feel like the story continues. I feel like we're ending this podcast with like dot.
I'll take it.
Like I can't wait to see how things evolve and change with you personally, which we hardly even got into, but and then all of the amazing things that you're doing.
Yeah, me too. We're excited to see where the dot leads us.
Yeah.
So certainly, we're not where we thought we would be 5 years ago. And we're also in kind of the exact space that we should be. So we're really excited to see where all of this goes.
Well, I am super excited as well. And I picture the dot versus an arrow. Like,
yes.
And that's just, I think, such a beautiful thing.
Totally.
You've done a really great job of capturing something that's really special.
Oh, thank you so much, Lisa. It was a blast to be here today and talk a little bit more about it. And, I love talking about space. I'll do it all day long, anytime. So,
oh, that's going to be a problem for us.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Lisa.